some brand new faces on the caster desk.
Hello, hello. It's good to be here, and it's a pleasure to be jumping into this game once again, ladies and gentlemen. Lynx is here, the host of the new hit game show, right?
It's sweeping the nation currently. Mass reviews, I believe 6 billion people watched it at its premiere during the break. 6
billion, that's crazy.
I have to get NASA to...
I thought there was only 5 million people in the world.
I've got to get NASA to double check the numbers on that one, but I think it's tentative, but I believe it's accurate.
All right, well, we're going to be getting ready to jump into this matchup, ladies and gentlemen, which is bound to be a good one as well. M80 going up against the Wolves. And as you can see here, heading on to Villa for our matchup. These are two lights-out teams. I'm sure it's going to be a lights-out matchup. So let's get ourselves into it and see who tops it out. Another best of one to decide who gets a good start here to our round-robin group stage. Let's find out as we go live with the bands in just a moment here.
Well, as Fresh and Ann both said, this is, alongside Chalet, one of M80 and Wolves' most preferred maps. And I think the fact that we got this map between these two teams is especially exciting because their play styles align so well to this. This is a map where fraggers will shine. Mowgli on Wolves and say even Spoit or Iconic on Villa. We're gonna see a lot of lurking, a lot of aggressive plays in the attack and the defense, and the bans should hopefully reflect that. M80 starting out, they'll ban the Dokkaebi, but I wanna see the response from Wolves because M80 are one of the most proficient Ying teams in North America and potentially the world, and leaving that up, even though M80 are starting on the defense could be problematic, they'll take out the Nook. Maybe not as big of a ban as the Ying could be, that'll still target players like Iconic, who would certainly love to roam around the basement or lurk upstairs as that Nook.
Both of these bans are going to allow for roam presence to continue to cause problems, but now that we move over to the defender bans, we'll start to mitigate that a little bit, most notably with Solace getting knocked out first. She's one of our trifecta that's been banned out quite often here due to the freedom that those three operators have to play into that roam game, and the second ban for the defense is going to align with that as well. Valkyrie becomes the final ban here, and with those out of the way, we'll go live with the first round.
I like these bans between both of them, but the Ying being on the board, this should make it even more exciting a game than it already seemed to be in theory. M80 and Wolves will have the option available to them, but often we'll see teams sometimes hold off on picking that Ying until the later round of their attack or the late game period. It's round 12 and they need to get a quick round on the board. We won't see it from Wolves just yet, but they have that 45-second attacker repick, so plenty of time to change their plan. Not so for the defense, of course. We have a pretty good idea of what their strategy is, especially Spoit on that Azami. We can expect him to maybe play around trophy stat rate the first 45 seconds, but for the majority of that round, he'll probably find himself on the maps table trying to hold down some power positions, at least inside the bomb site or even a little bit further.
By the way, as far as the defensive setup is concerned, nothing too surprising for our first round here. Izami obviously immediately coming out there for Spoit to allow for that play potential to be ignited both inside of the site and a little bit out from that, more than likely too, to start out the round and delay some of this clearing time from Wolves. Away from that, we have our usual assortment of delay utility on top of the utility mitigation itself, and even Iconic, of course, bringing the Mozzie, and we've been seeing him played more and more this event here, just to try and deny that drone intel a little bit more, probably to boost the capability of this roam game a tad as well. So for M80, time to see what exactly they can do in that delay department here, and if that aggressive playstyle is going to shine immediately from round one, or if they'll back up a little bit here, give the Wolves their initial respect so they can analyze their playstyle and then get a bit more aggressive later on.
We'll see Gomez get aggressive those first 45 seconds, but again, likely only for about a minute. One Clutch drone immediately shot by M80. Don't even need those Mozzie pests to start out. Very big piece of utility taken down off the board early, as there are a plethora of electronics that Wolves would like to take down. Not only those pests, of course, but some magnets would be huge to deal with Gomez playing inside of Master Bedroom. If they're able to take down the one or two that he has, though of course one has already been burnt, clearing out that Brick's door would be a lot easier. Unfortunately, a frag grenade, not aptly cooked, will tell Gomez he should probably start heading back towards the site, and that's exactly what he'll do. First minute now wasted by M80, but not wasted in terms of they've done something bad. That Wolves have now been delayed on the entry.
Wolves eventually getting that access to Master, and they're immediately carving through it as Deadshot takes initial control of Statuary. Should be able to move through Trophy and the connectors leaning up the Death's Door side. From that, you can see Spoit now being fallen back. He'll set himself up on the site with those Kiba barricades immediately. Giving himself a great kill box to play out against the Statue push. Just have to be careful, of course, of Study being taken away by the Wolves if they decide to go for pressure there. Spoit, however, will lose quite a bit of that setup on top of his own HP, but he gets immediate revenge with a wild peek out into Study. Tries to make it two, but Deadshot responds, and now The take begins. They waste no time moving in for site control. Diaz will respond in terms of kills, but he's currently trying to fight for Gunvault, and that's the problem. Deadshot has clean pathing to move himself over into bar. Immediately takes that, downs out another player as well. Kino tries to duck and cover. Obviously not going to work. Iconic gets revenge from below to finally eliminate Deadshot, and with that we'll go down to a 2v2. Sheikah had the confidence to go for a plant, but he since canceled it, as M80 is quickly closing the gap on these players. Over, it's an overconfident retake. P4 is primed. They're ready to shut down not just one, but both of the remaining members of the defense here to give the opening round over to the Wolves.
A peak round between both teams. Wolves not wasting any time upon taking down Spoit to take that bit of control, move into maps, but not necessarily go for a plant. Instead, to clean out the site. They made the smart read. Don't go for the plant just yet. Diaz Lucas is still alive, and not only is he holding a good position in Vault, you never want to try to go for an execute with Diaz Lucas still lurking by. But M80 still had some very solid moments, especially Iconic rotating down below for that C4. But I think you really need to give credit to Wolves that round. If Spoit had survived on that maps table, especially after taking on Mowgli on Study, that power position likely would have lasted for a very long part of the round, and Wolves would have been stopped at the entrance. By taking him down, they knew they had their opportunity, and sure was a bit of a gamble, but one that paid off.
It was a very aggressive and booming start, and an interesting site choice comes in from M80 to respond to that one. Not one that we tended to see get played all that much inside of the regional matchups for either them or really most of the teams in North America. They go down to the living room site for round 2 here, which is going to mean that we'll still have some play going on inside of Aviator Games, most notably around the gun vault area. You can see Kino doing all the shotgun work right now to open up the very important top-down angles. That's the primary point of holding on to this room, to hopefully delay the take from Wolves, forcing a clearance of this hold inside of gun vault, or otherwise leave Wolves in a very perilous situation trying to push the actual site without having cleared this out.
Gomez was able to survive on this part of the map for a decent length of time, just by himself with some Wamai utility. This time he's not the Wamai, he's the Mozzie, so with those pests, could delay some intel, but he's got Iconic on the pulse, at least initially, over on this part of the map to feed him intel or just give him an extra gun. The UMP with 1.5 in the right hands can still be a merchant of death. But right now, instead it's Spoit taking down Bibu early on. A set of nades gone and 2 opening kills for Spoit. He's made his presence known for M80 so far on this map on Villa, even with only 1 round on the board and it not being M80's.
Eliminates the sledge, so will hurt things a little bit for Wolves, but they were going to be trying to set up for nade angles or anything down below. Overall, though, keep in mind, of course, M80 has done a lot of the important top-down work already to lead into the site, so this shouldn't be an end-of-the-world situation to lose the sledge utility this early on. They have other ways to make up for it as well, especially with Ashtil being in play for Deadshot right now. Speaking of which, he's made his entry in through Master once again, and is quickly taking that control of the trophy side of the map here, moving through with a few other teammates. They'll begin to carve their way forward, but there's quite that active defense that's still been set up by M80 over here in the hallways. But good drone placement is going to allow for an aggressive peek to come out from Mowgli. The shots, unfortunately, not landing in the way they need to, and it's 2 for 2 for Iconic. With regards to the Nitro cells as well, he strikes true. More kills are beginning to flow in, but they're all in the favor of M80, save for 1 from P4. He unfortunately will not be able to sustain. Goes down to Iconic. It's another very quick round this time, though. It's in the favor of M80.
M80 just proving why this roster is so dangerous. The amount of talent in every single one of these players is almost unparalleled in the world at the moment, because Wolves were holding a lot of important angles and clearing out a lot of important positions. You see Mowgli holding the study balcony, trying to contend with the Legion inside of Aviator. You also have Deadshot trying to clear out from the trophy statuary position, and even someone on 90 to cut off the rotate in between those 2 positions. And what happens? M80 quite simply just kill all of them with utility in the case of Iconic, C4, or Spoit, with those 2 kills that he got in the round. And all the positions that Wolves tried to clear, M80 fought back very quickly, and perhaps you could say they were spread a little thin. They did basically try to clear out the entire map from north to south side at the same time. But M80 showed you gotta make sure you're not just taking a one-on-one with them, because there's a good chance they're gonna win it.
Try to do it pretty dang quickly as well. All the play pretty much coming down to the wire there with the first minute and a half of play. Very quick rounds being shown by both M80 and Wolves. Curious to see, once again, if that will get peeled back at all for round number 3 here as we go to the kitchen now for M80's 3rd defense. Wolves maybe biting off a little bit more than they can chew with their aggression, but they want to try and double down on things one final time after it's gone awry. And it'll still end up working out for them as it did back in round number 1. The Bravo's still staying in play now for Deadshot as the Ash gets removed from the attacking lineup. They're not going to need that direct soft breach potential here. He's taking out the utility interior to the site will be more important, especially once again with the Mozzie drones ending up in play, or the Mozzie pests, excuse me, in play. It'll be nice to get rid of those. Aside from that, though, actually won't be a whole lot, unfortunately, for this Bravo drone to try and potentially target as it gets into the site. Default cams one can obviously be stolen away too, but there we go. The first one dead, and it's not going to take anything, unfortunately.
Probably the most useful thing to find would be one of those goo mines, especially if Wolves want to do a replay of round number one. Just move in super quick once they get an opening. Then taking down a goo mine in your way will probably end up getting you the round if round one was indicative of anything. But of course, getting to that point, they'll have to move through these roamers from M80. Iconic knows that they're pushing Study Door. And they might have spotted him, but it's very unclear at the moment whether or not they know that he's there, or at least they're just being weary of it. No, Deadshot walks in, lets a couple shots loose, but Iconics, they strike true. And M80 get an advantage now, 3 rounds in a row.
3-0 start for M80 when it comes to the entry game. Mowgli going for a chuck nade up on top, hoping for a response somewhere in the bookcase upstairs, but no one from M80 positioned anywhere near there. As we can see, Iconic would have been the closest player, but pretty detached from where the nade was ultimately thrown, so not going to be able to find the impact at this early phase of the round. Continue to back away from that, though, and play into his position over here towards AVG. Waste out the time from Wolves, as they still have a bit of an uncertain push to start things out here at the beginning of round 3. Well, they're certainly making impact against the positions from M80, the extended ones, that is. They've just not been able to flush them out as of yet. It's going to cause some real problems if we don't change up that fate very, very soon. P4 with the lurk going over here towards Pantry should be able to take that control uncontested. Moving outside of Pantry is obviously a very different beast, but now with the pinch support coming in from Mudroom's side into Red Hall, things should start to get a little bit more palatable to begin actually pressuring the site. But as you'll see, a few pieces of utility still sit in the way. Mowgli tries to force the issue yet again and is immediately doused by Kino. The upstairs roam, again, has not been dealt with, so Iconic and Gomez strike from those positions yet again. Shinka making his own play here in the meanwhile, just 2 direct entries. Problem is, obviously, he's alone here, and now with a sliver of HP to play off of. One wrong step leads to his elimination and a loss of this round, alongside M80 taking control of the lead. Let's see if Iconic can actually capture the counter here, but once again, Shinka holds on. A 3rd kill inside of this 1vx. It would be an outright 1v5 clutch if Shinka can bring it to bear. It's certainly starting to look a little bit more plausible, but the plant still needs to go down onto the ground. Noise is made, an immediate shift in positioning is played out from M80. He spots Iconic sitting behind the reinforcement, but just can't get the shot against him. Trying to spray into it. Smart play to go for the Selma, but then the crouch up top gives the angle over to Spoit to shut down the round and put it in M80's hands anyway.
Gotta give credit to Iconic right there. I mean, he took the entire focus, the entire aggro from Wolves in the early round, and eventually, indicated by Bibu's rotation from Study over to the northern part of the map, they needed to give up. They were tunnel visioning on a player who was basically by himself and had only acquired 1 kill, but the damage was done at that point. They just tried to send it on in, but one, because they hadn't cleared the roamers, entering in the laundry, assuming one of the defenders was watching the hatch, it was an impossibility, an inevitability that the player entering there was going to die. But also, Mowgli giving away his position outside of Brown Stairs, moving in through Kitchen. Not only does he reveal his position with the shots, but he accidentally shoots the alibi clone without destroying it, indicating to all the players, specifically DS Lucas and the site, exactly what Wolves were trying to do.
So M80 now with a bit of a lead established for themselves, especially when it comes to the early round, just controlling everything save for round 1 at this point. That includes the entry game as well. 3-0 as the first 3 rounds have played out. Wolves will see if they can change their fate up. Definitely looking like we're going to play things out more traditionally here when it comes to the attack now. As we're going to see the Montaigne brought in for Bibu, the IQ getting brought up for P4 as well. They want a much more stable analysis on this take before they throw themselves at it. As clearly this aggression is just not working out to the same degree as it was back in round number 1. M80's found the counter to it, and they are crushing Wolves as of the past 2 rounds here. So it is time for a change. We're immediately going to see that echo out here as Wolves move in for the slow take downstairs to begin working their way up through that main stairs area and eventually through Study more than likely as well.
Going for that main stairs take, they got to be careful to make sure they keep those nade operators alive. Not only to deal with the player on main stairs itself, but especially anybody playing on long bar who can watch the bottom of main stairs and the walk up. If you're not able to deal with those 2 positions, that can often be the death knell for any kind of take on main stairs. The IQ down below will try to find some of that utility, maybe defenders sitting on cams inside of the site. 1 nade already cooked, but falls a little short. Mowgli will pick up the second. Very much trying to deal with Iconic, but he'll back off for the time being. C4 goes wide and does not find anything. Here's this Monty, oddly enough. That'll be their answer for Kino.
Kino obviously not able to immediately do anything about the Monty in terms of outright eliminating him, but he can slow it down with the Toxic Babes. There's at least a little bit delay from that one. But once more, this is still very early on in the round. If he's just going to chain the three of these together, Bibu will be clear to eventually push his way up the stairs in just about 15 seconds or so. This time, finally, Wolves break the curse of that opening kill loss that they've been taking in the previous 3 rounds, and Mowgli is going to be able to strike first, knocking out Iconic himself. Kino not wanting to waste out this final Toxic Baby, uses it to kind of bait in Bibu a little bit. He's crossed the threshold, so he is going to be able to directly challenge him. P4 as well here, looking to counter that potential flank. Not sure if he's aware of the positioning that's already here downstairs, but it seems like Wolves have somewhat of an idea of it. Regardless, though, it's a tough situation for the Wolves to fight their way out of, but P4 finds the first strike from that. Takes down Gomez. Spoit will respond, knocking out P4. Just like that, M80 are back into the round. Still down a player here, though, and Mowgli pushes it one step further as he gets another entry into the site itself against Diaz. Kino goes wild, peeking all the way into Study, pays the price for it as he goes down to Mowgli. Spoit once again responds, but now he is alone in the 1v3, forces his way back into the site, gets the down against Mowgli, and kills him in the process. Bibu should still have a pretty clean plant. Spoit's going to need to rotate through Gunvault. He's got a way to work himself outside of that, and as you saw there, red ping on Deadshot. So has full player intel. Deadshot realized that because it was a red ping, so he backed away from it, got himself out of the hot zone here, and now Spoit playing purely on instinct, and oh, very nearly gets that headshot against Deadshot here. Now trying to get the better of the Fontaine, but this is an impossible situation, it seems, to win out. As we can see, Deadshot's going all the way down below. Spoit's just going to hop onto the counter defuse, see if he can force the issue. Nade goes in. It actually banks off of one of those wood barriers, though, so it's not going to get the full kill. The shield is dropped, and Deadshot, actually, with a shot from below, will finish things off as Wolves go 2-0 on the AVG attacks.
Just such a well-thought-out take from Wolves that M80, to be quite frank, just didn't have, well, I was about to say they didn't have an answer to, but they did, but I'll get to that in a second. The plan with that Monty, as many of you saw, was to walk up main stairs, burn out Kino smokes, and then what's he gonna do? Shotgun you through the extended shield? No, that's not gonna happen. So you're just gonna push him back a little bit, or at a bare minimum, make him uncomfortable. And then you have Deadshot watching the main door, Mowgli watching Study, to make sure that nobody can either A, provide support to Kino, or B, take down your Monty. M80's attempt was the Gomez and Spoit flank, but Wolves had accounted for that as well. They had P4 flanking the flankers from red stairs, and they already had Deadshot watching bottom main in case this exact thing happened. Wolves had redundancies on top of redundancies to count for everything M80 could potentially throw at them, and just the Monty to start everything off and to end everything off with getting that bomb down. It was just a really well thought out plan from Wolves.
Basically just creating a much more defendable push for themselves to be able to play off of there, especially with the Monty watching things on the front end, and as you noted, countering out the flank attempt, which was a good counter in my opinion as well from M80. Just Wolves reading far too much into it as they played more heavily into intel, I think, than anything else on that previous round versus the previous rounds, of course, where they were just playing on raw aggression over all else here. So may actually be seeing a little bit more of that aggression come alive yet again, as we've seen a return on the Ash for P4. On top of this, Deadshot is finally going to bring the Ying into play for the Wolves here as well. We can expect something a little bit more flashy potentially this time for the Wolves now that they have tied things up again.
Only site they've won so far is Aviator Games. It's also the first time M80 have now gone to Trophy Statuary, so Wolves win this. It'll be a new trend for them, but a new trend for M80 just by going here. Liking to put 2 roamers around the map, but at least on the second floor, pull them back decently quick. Doesn't even seem to be the case here. 4 players concentrated in the site currently. Just trying to deal with these attackers sitting on bedroom balcony, maybe pop some shots over at them, but try to get things too crazy too early on. So it'll likely be a pretty stagnant opening minute and a half, maybe even 2 minutes between Wolves and M80. As Wolves are going for a very direct take, and M80 are just holding on to the site, with the only one breaking the pattern is Iconic, and well, he's pretty much alone in 90.
Continuing to wait things out from that position as well. Wolves taking the initial early round a bit more slowly, as they do want to try and take that initial control. An impact, interesting enough, goes out there from Gomez. It's not going to really change the overall result of the explosion of that Rotero drone. It still gets rid of the deployable shield ultimately at the end of the day. Deadshot quickly chucking in the first Candela, and a second one to follow that one up. Thankfully backs away from the angle just in time, but now the kills go off, because it's all a distraction for Wolves to really entry in from Master Bedroom. And indeed they'll succeed at least evenly trading things out while getting some map control in the process, but now Spoit, aggressive as he always is, swings right back out to steal that progress away. It's Shinka that's taken on the most recent death from the Wolves here, and now put them on the back foot as well. Bibu takes his most recent teammate's death's position. He's going to try to push forward here. over towards the connector 4 statuary. Has the ping, but even with it, still cannot win out the fight against Spoit, and Deadshot gets caught. Try to throw another Candela into the face of Diaz. The Candela hit, but unfortunately after he went down, and the round along with it. So M80 once again retake control of the lead by winning out round 5 there with their first trophy statuary defense.
Just a clean smile after a 3K from Spoit. Very happy with his performance in that round, just as the rest of M80 should be happy. Not falling for the bait, not getting too worried about Deadshot throwing in his Candelas. You still had Gomez watching the jump in, making sure that, well, the exact thing that Wolves attempted to do didn't end up happening, or at least didn't end up succeeding. They just watch Bedroom, they watch Astro, they watch all the entrances that Wolves could jump through, and then they killed them once they did. To be perfectly frank, John, it's pretty much the beginning and the end of it.
Yeah, very simple round ultimately at the end of the day, especially when we see the impact that was made from Spoit there, just constantly disrupting any attempt at an entry from Wolves. So Wolves, I doubt, going to consider the results of that round too heavily. Just kind of wipe that one away, move on to the next one here. Unfortunately, it's one that they have lost in the past as well, as we return once again downstairs into the kitchen area, where M80 is going to try to set themselves up nicely for the second half with a potential 4-2 scoreline. How will Wolves change up their own fate here? Are they going to continue once again to play things out a bit more slowly, a bit more default natured? As they kind of tried to skip a few steps last time. May very well be doing the same thing here. You'll note there's not a sledge, which you would normally want in this situation to try and establish top-down control above the site, but obviously we do not have that right now for the attackers. And we are going to see Bibu, of course, bring in the kind of backup for that in terms of the breaching charges there, so could still see the same kind of style being played out, but myself looking at it right now, it does indicate a more direct play like we saw on the last attempt.
That's maybe just to counter the tunnel visioning they felt last time, concentrating so heavily on Iconic, losing Deadshot in the opening pick as well. Focus on clearing the utility, so that way, if you want to end round 6 like you began this half, by getting a kill on the site and immediately moving on in, you'll need to clear a lot of this utility before you make it there, especially those goo mines, maybe those Mozzie Pets as well, but hell, just killing Diaz, Lucas, or Spoit, whether it be above or below, it might be enough to get you an opening that you're looking for, not only in the round, but into an execute. No Brava this time, which we saw in the previous kitchen defense, so if you want to deal with those goo mines, it'll have to be with either the Thatcher or just by straight up shooting them. Already some EMPs used, and the Selma's wasted. Kino lurking downstairs will make his position known, but not before destroying some important utility and denying an angle that Wolves would have very much liked to have an option.
So direct spot is made on to Kino, hiding out directly underneath of Pantry still, so he'll just go for a quick shift away. Could very easily return to it, because once again, Wolves do not have positioning down there to actually threaten his life at this point. He still is very much in his right to play that out, but I think he still got scared enough by the drone. He was forced away from it, just looking at the silhouettes right now. Anyway, it looks like he made the rotation over through Astro Stairs to get himself into a more playable position. Spoit is continuing to maintain that top-down advantage, and Mowgli nicely spotted out as he catches Kino rotating back up. He will take him down, but had to overextend into Laundry to get that opener, so gets immediately traded back out, and now M80 take the advantage from the defensive side again with Diaz's most recent pickup against the Ash played by Deadshot.
I'm worried in some of these rounds, Wolves think they're facing a worse team than they actually are.
Yeah.
I keep thinking that M80 aren't watching these angles, that they'll catch them off guard, but every single time, M80 are ever vigilant, never ceasing in watching these doorways, these windows. They're denying everything from Wolves. Now Shinka will try to do the same, make his way in through Pantry, but P4 still hasn't cleared out upstairs. Shinka drops down on the site, but Bibu can play his trade. That still means they're in a disadvantage. P4 will have to join them if they want any chance at ending this half 3-3.
I agree exactly with what you're saying there with regards to Wolves trying to play their entry game here a bit more aggressively than they should. Trying to go directly for that site control time after time again, and M80 is just lambs to the slaughter for them. They're more than happy to accept this big flight coming up here for P4 at least. Has the free kill against Gomez. It is going to rattle the defenses a bit as well here. You can see M80 shuffled around a bit, as all they have left now is the upstairs positioning. So Wolves will finally get the room they need to go for to plant. Immediately though, M80 is jumping back into the site. As you can see, some damage being found on a P4. It does not interrupt the plant ultimately. That will finally go down onto the ground, and maybe a round to be claimed for the Wolves along with it. Oh, do they check this hard corner? No, they do not. P4 swings out from it and takes down Iconic. It's the man that met the legend, though, looking to clutch it out. Already 10-3 inside of this game. Can he give us another 1v2 clutch scenario here? Has a good amount of time, about 20 seconds to make this happen. It immediately knocks out one of his two targets. Got the intel on the second one now, but did he read the right rotation direction? No, he does not. P4 wins it out again for the Wolves, and they tie this one up at halftime.
The patience on P4 and Wolves, so impressive. That round seemed done and dusted. You still had someone on the site and 2 players up above to watch and make sure that Wolves weren't just going to sneak on in and take them down. But they did sneak in, but not in the way M80 thought. Just after you and I gave Wolves some flack for thinking that M80 weren't watching their angles, P4 says, okay, they think we're going to push the site. They think, just like I said, that they were going to team up and push on in. But no, P4 instead flanks up Brownstairs. And the decision-making on him to go for that play despite the low time, and it pays off so well because that round really is lost if he does not go that way. They were trying to play trades, and it just did not work out until P4 made a huge solo venture, and now they do tie the half.
Nicely done once again here by the Wolves, kind of abusing the fact that they had more players to throw at the site there versus M80, who was obviously still extending 2 to 3 players. Oh.
Rehost.
Fix that real quick, folks. Give us a moment. Yep, we just obviously will rehost that really quickly at halftime. But yeah, just kind of abusing the fact that once again they had the extensions going on upstairs alongside of the fact that Wolves have been playing an incredibly aggressive and on top of that a very fast attacking side here, and was basically just able to subvert those upstairs angles, work their way directly past them. Still lost a few players in the process, but the fact that they were basically playing a 5v3 on site was enough to get them in and force the plant, and then they just gambled it on the 2v2 for the post plant. Past that point, ended up coming out on top. It's a bit of a risky strategy at the end of the day, but it works out for the Wolves as they do tie it up for halftime here. 2-2, or rather 3-3, with the 2 wins being found, of course, inside of the AVG sites, and then finally there on the second play downstairs in Kitchen.
Now at the side swap, we'll have to see how M80 decide to take things. Both these teams have the ability to get aggressive and play structured if they want to. They might have their preferences, but their capabilities are undeniable. But I'd imagine we're likely maybe see more of the Ying and the Monty, at least consistently from M80. That's typically what we would see in the NAL. The Villa isn't often the map that you think about bringing at least that Monty, though the Ying might be a bit more preferable, especially sometimes we'll see some lineups on Twitter, you know, thrown through the trophy statuary, skylight, along with some smoke grenades. This map does sometimes cater to a very proficient Ying team. We'll just have to see if M80 decides to go that way. Of course, as John said, 3-3 half between these 2 teams. AVG, oddly enough, 100% attacker win rate at the moment. We'll have to see if that continues onto the side swap and if M80 face the same ease that Wolves did, or else things will change because it's pretty much all over the place when it comes to which side favors which side.
M80 does tend to kind of match the energy of their opponents, I've noticed, so I would personally expect to see the same level of aggressive play we're getting out of the Wolves, but at the same time, over the course of the NAL, M80 showed themselves to play a much more kind of restrained game at times that it was required, playing against more tactical opponents such as Dark Zero, and that's obviously a massive growth for M80 given where they were as a team last year. So once again, expanding their own playstyle capabilities leads them into a greater capability to potentially win out this matchup. But we'll have to wait and see what exactly they're going to look to bring to the table to match what was a very aggressive half from the Wolves.
Definitely. And I think that's shown your point about being able to play more restrained when it's needed by how Spoit conducted himself for a lot of those roams, or how Iconic even conducted himself on some of those roams, in that they'd sit on maybe one side of the map for 45 seconds to a minute, and Gomez did this as well to some extent, but then they'd back off, because one of the key points of Wolves, as Fresh will always talk about, is their front 3, but specifically Mowgli is always looking for that 1-for-1, always looking for that pick, and sometimes they'll just kind of send him, unleash him on the attack and hope he gets an opening pick. And so how do you deny that? Well, you don't give them the opportunity for that to happen at all. If you're going to go for a roam, try to outflank them, try to hide yourself from some drones. We saw Iconic do that, albeit against Deadshot instead of Mowgli. But Spoit, instead of just roaming around the map, would play a position, but then flank outside of the site if that needed to happen. He didn't start outside of the site. It'd be a position and a decision he actively made in the round to try to deny Wolves an easy opportunity for an entry, which players like Deadshot, but especially Mowgli, would try to find.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, looks like we are going live once again. Apologies for that disruption there. I think we just had the server kind of randomly crash on us, so sorry about that. But we are back now. And once again, for those who were not with us, we are coming back right at the start of the second half. 3-3, dead heat. It's pretty much a new game here. First of 4 wins it. But obviously, we won't be switching sides at any point, unless we need to go to OT, obviously. Let's get into it, though, as it is going to be another AVG hold initially. This time, of course, being selected out by the Wolves on defense.
As John and I were talking about earlier, the site on this map specifically, and not like on this map in the tournament, but just between M80 and Wolves so far, is 100% attacking win rate. And part of that is just because the attack would, at least in, say, a second attempt from Wolves, sit outside, hold their angles, but make the defense as uncomfortable as possible to try and force rotations or force gunfights from anybody holding main stairs or maps or even just moving inside of the site to get those kills. The other time it was won, it was just by taking out a player inside of maps and quickly filling the space that was just evacuated by the defense. We'll have to see what Wolves do, or what M80 do, excuse me, but based on the operators we've seen, Iconic picking the Jackal and Gomez on the Lion, seems like it's going to be more of a full clear instead of a direct main stairs and study take. They'll try to move from Trophy Statuary over through the entire map and not leave Wolves much ground to go for a flank.
Stubbs gives Wolves a bit more play capability inside of the opening moments of the round, of course, but they want to try and get wild against M80's initial clear attempts. But once M80 take that map control, due to the style they're going for, at least initially what we're seeing anyway, it will be very, very difficult to take that map control back, as they'll play that more kind of box style where they try to support each other's pushes, like we saw out of Wolves back in round number 4, as they were able to finally leverage control of a second round for themselves there on the second Aviation Games attack. Spoit's already made his own impact and is quickly carving through Master Bath, even past that to Astro as well, having gone downstairs here, so just keeping Overwatch for any sort of flanks, and of course being able to move down here, take out the default camp is a nice little bonus too, so we'll have the freedom of movement here later on if he wants to continue to navigate through. First E1D is going to go out for the attackers just to make sure, once again, they're not able to catch anyone in the middle of that transition from the Trophy Statuary side heading back to the site itself, which they won't, unfortunately.
Wolves playing a pretty standard game between M80 and themselves, I suppose. Getting aggressive for that first minute, just in terms of positioning, but then backing off fairly quick, denying M80 that same opportunity that they sought on their attacking side. Spoit will creep down below 90, but nobody playing there at the moment, or at least nobody close by. Could go for a nade below inside of the site. That's what Wolves need to worry about. If he's able to even find one, maybe on main stairs or inside a bar, M80 could rush up those stairs, but we're getting a bit low on time for that. He's instead just looking to see if there is anybody lurking downstairs, keeping his options open, but it'll likely be a red stairs 90 and further for a vault plan afterwards. They'll move to open up the vault angle. They'll need to deny P4's position, but we're only reaching a minute left. M80 still have a decent bit of time, but they got to start making moves. Not even in terms of executes, but just clearing positions and using utility. As we move below that sub-minute mark, Spoit still got both of his nades, and M80 aren't that close to an execute.
Mowgli finally strikes first here, only seeing that initial kill come in at about the 50-second mark. So once again, increasing the difficulty of things even further for M80. And this is even considering the fact that Diaz also got down outside of study. Now, he should be retrievable, especially with 2 players still being downstairs. But oh no, Deadshot notices his teammate want to take advantage upon it, and indeed he does. Gets the down onto Iconic as well, finishing him off, of course, and leaving the options even lower here now for M80 to play this one out. Diaz did get retrieved, though, so at least they've got that for themselves. And now it's a 3v5, 20 seconds left. They're not even really in position necessarily to go for the attack. Look at the silhouettes. You can see 2 players still trying to wreck it, a push up through the main stairs, where Bibu is waiting in the wings. Deadshot goes blind for that triple kill shot as well there, and still knocks out Diaz. Second one on top of that, very impressive, of course, but it's Mowgli now to shut things down, and a flawless start to the half for the Wolves as they outright slap members of M80 in the face, trying to take control of AVG.
But a reactionary slap. It's not like they reached out to M80. They waited for them to move closer to the site and start making plays, and then Wolves reacted and reacted flawlessly. Specifically that study side of the map, which is often where we sometimes see Aviator Games attacks live or die. You've got to apply pressure on that vault position or that main stairs position. Pretty much no matter which attack you want to do, no matter which side it comes from. Wolves did not falter, and M80 really struggled. You got to also hand it to Deadshot that round. That down on the player forced M80's hand. They decided to go for the res, given how much time was left, and he reacted perfectly, able to take down Iconic, who wanted to go for the revive, and ended up with a too many cooks in the kitchen situation and tried to remedy it by moving up to study, and then reacting knowing that their only real option with 15 seconds left was to move up main stairs. It was a very patient game from the Wolves, and it had its stars mainly being Deadshot.
Quickly moving through this game once again, as now the Wolves work themselves upstairs in the trophy and statuary for the first time in this half. M80 potentially not expecting that, as we see pretty much a full repick come out from them. Everybody's going to be changing up the route breakers. Most notably Iconic there, of course, bringing out Garahook in now to this attacking lineup as well. Sometimes this is just for the G8, and then you have the Garahook as kind of a backup, but considering the site choice, you could see more active play being set up here by the rest of M80. So we'll have to wait and see what exactly his plans are going to be as he spawns out on the other side of the map. So he's got a bit of a run to join up with the rest of his teammates here as they look to take their initial control. P4 as well, going on an extended roam over towards AVG, but probably not going to find much based on at least the initial positions that M80 have spawned into. They're not going to be trying to go too aggressively into this one. Spoit, of course, there going on to repel. Same for Diaz, and establishing a bit of overwatch to those rotations.
Diaz is a very scary player to face in positions like this on attack or defense, but just in a position where he has to sit and hold an angle and be patient and pretty much just not die. That's Diaz's favorite spot to play on either side on any map, and that's what he'll do right now. Make sure that nobody can move up through Boar into 90, and that allows for Iconic's entry into 90 through that window, and for M80 to now take that bit of the map, that southern part of Villa, into their control. Now they'll have to apply the pressure to everybody playing in Trophy Statuary. It'll take a bit. They're going at least for a direct utility clear, supplemented by a full clear by the remainder of the attack. And Wolves are slowly getting boxed in. Some players down below to relieve some pressure. Deadshot on red stairs might just be the guy to stop M80 in their tracks, because we still have over half the round to go. And as these Kibas run down and as M80 gain more and more positions, Wolves are going to run out of room to breathe.
Half the round still to play out, though, so M80 not necessarily grasping for time just yet. But as we saw in the last round, it became a real issue for them. They don't want a repeat of that one. Sometimes you can see M80 struggling to adapt inside of these environments, and that may be part of the reason why we saw them struggling in the NA, ultimately placing 6th, despite the fact they ultimately won it later when we switched up to best of 3s for the bracket part of the playoffs. We'll see if that same issue is going to pop up here against the Wolves, but it's Gomez now trying to make the entry mark. It's quite a bit of a response for the defensive side, but Iconic suddenly finds one of them as he lurches forward to the inside of the statue connector in order to pick up the first kill of the round against Mowgli. P4, though, finds a response against Gomez. Spoit with an angle, but can't land the shot. Bibu steals another member of his team away instead. Kano getting dropped as well. It's 2 very low HP members remaining. P4 had been down, but now on a rotate. Iconic will be lost as well. Spoit is all that remains here inside of a 1v3 realistically. Being given nothing from these members of the Wolves as well. He's already pinched. Oh, he was scoped in there. Could have very realistically gotten the kills. Trying to get the confirmation on the P4s that he doesn't get retrieved. And indeed, will complete that task. But time is getting lower and lower here. 20 seconds to go before the clock runs out and the round goes over to the Wolves, setting them up for just 2 rounds left until this game is over. Spoit can't even make a clean entry. It'll be telegraphed due to that bulletproof sitting on the left side of the wall. The peek from the bedroom, as expected, due to the intel coming in from that bulletproof, ends the round quite quickly. And once again, it's the Wolves taking control so far with a 2-0 lead on this half. And that will lead us into a somewhat predictable at this point pause now from M80, as they do need to very quickly figure things out as they lose their grasp on the situation.
Good timing. M80 on their attack are doing a very good job at, in that first minute, getting map control, moving on in. But there's notably not that much resistance for Wolves, which isn't atypical by any means. Playing offside in that first minute, then falling back, it's Villa 101. But once they get to the site, even if they clear out some utility, they're getting locked. They are stalling out. They are not able to break apart the Wolves defense wide enough to move on in. Think back to round number 1 where Wolves were on the attack, where they were able to find Spoit in maps and then move in. And even though they didn't get the bomb down or took a long time to, they were still able to move in and acquire control on the site and force M80 to react. M80 cannot do that to Wolves on their defensive setups. 2 rounds in a row now, they've made it to surrounding the entire site and then are stuck and then are locked in place. And when you have situations with Mowgli and Deadshot playing around red stairs, holding a crossfire, M80 can't break it. Eventually, they just try to send it on in, and everyone from Wolves is waiting.
We'll head now into round number 9. Truly, it is somewhat of a do-or-die moment here for M80. 6-3. While it's certainly possible to come back from, it is going to be rough, considering the potential outcome of this round and the 2 prior. If we don't see a sudden shakeup from M80 given the pause they just brought us. But that's what we're expecting here now. So let's see what exactly they will bring to the table. There's already a few small change-up to the operator lineup that's been seen. Could be repicked, of course, but Iconic, bringing the Twitch, for example. Well, it's going to see a return for Spoit there onto the Thatcher as well to quickly deal with any of that insight utility that would look to disrupt the kind of quicker carve, if that's going to be the plan here from M80.
Wow. I'm surprised at no Ying pick from M80 if you talk about disrupting the players inside of the site. I mean, there's no Jaeger, there's no Wamai. I mean, there is some utility. You've got those EDDs you got to worry about if you're walking in, those Kiva barriers if they block windows or block doorways, but nothing to actually deal with the Candelas beyond somebody in sight simply just shooting them. And then maybe a bit of an oversight from M80 in this do-or-die moment where winning this round isn't imperative, not just to deny Wolves match point, but also to show that you did learn some lessons from that tactical timeout that you're trying to action upon in the remainder of your attacking rounds. They have some good utility, don't get me wrong. They've got the Twitch drone. They can clear out these Goyos. They can clear out these EDDs. but they don't have many flashes. They only have one set of nades and one set of smokes to deny those angles or take down players without warranting a gunfight. A bit worried that M80, at least in terms of the operators they picked, might be forced to take gunfights like they've had to the previous 2 rounds.
A lot of breaching charges and on top of the sledge pick as well. Makes me want to believe that they really want to try and play top-down control in this one. That will certainly be in play, but Wolves have responded to this one in kind of an interesting way as they have the horizontal hold on top of the usual extension into master bedroom. As you can see Bibu here extending himself out over towards the living room. He has been spotted out by a pre-placed drone from M80 though, so his effectiveness is probably going to be somewhat limited because of that. But as you guys may have noticed by this point, M80 once again is not necessarily having the easiest time getting this full top-down control. They've gotten a few of the key pieces such as bedroom itself, but walk-in, as you're going to notice here, bathroom that is still being actively challenged by Mowgli, and he strikes true yet again. Deadshot also is able to pick one up, and not just one, he gets a second kill. Bibu, despite being pre-droned, also is going to catch Iconic. So another failed attack from M80 leaves Diaz in an impossible situation, and it'll quickly be impossible very fast after he's put into it there. P4 shuts it down, and just like that, only a few minutes into the second half, Wolves are already on map and match point.
What a scoreline against what an opponent. I mean, M80, champions of the NAL, and this seemed like, obviously, on paper, the toughest matchup that Wolves were going to go against. A Phase 2 team, best of the NAL, and a team that, to be perfectly frank, just taking gunfights with can sometimes be a bit of a challenge. And they are playing so disciplined in the face of M80, not really moving, not giving up too much control, more than they need to, especially on or around the bomb site. These defensive rounds have just been so well played from Wolves, in that the space they give, M80 take, but the space they contest, it's so difficult for the attack to move on in. And I hate to say it, John, I know we're both North American, but I don't see that trend switching up for Wolves in this final round on defense.
Yeah, I agree with the sentiment here. There hasn't really been much of a dramatic shakeup from M80's pause that they just went for at the start of round number 9. There's not really anything to suggest round 10 would be any different here. It's going to need to take a massive individual performance out of one of these players, which again, that's another thing. Obviously, we can see purely the second half stats because all those kills, like the kill-death ratios you're seeing right now, are just after we had to do the rehost anyway. And it's a pretty far cry from what we had in the first half here. Iconic, literally the only player that's been able to make impact so far. It's Donuts aside from that here in the second half from M80.
Certainly a rough go at it. Again, no Ying, no Monty. We normally see M80.
The Deadshot hasn't even died yet. I just realized that as well.
He hasn't, 6-0. But we normally see M80 bring out these operators that can maybe brute force attacks or provide some way to break a stalemate. And M80 are just not doing it. They're bringing so much useful utility, but it's not really amounting to kills. In the case, as John just mentioned, only 2 kills for M80 since the rehost across the entire roster. And it's not giving them much control on the site. Finally, we have something. We've got an opening kill for M80, but even this has happened. Iconic got the opening pick on Mowgli in round number 8, and what ended up happening? It was still a victory for the defense, and a victory in the entry, a victory in the opening round is not enough for M80 given this precedent.
Mowgli is the somewhat expected player to go down, given the role that he plays of that aggressive swing anyway, trying to waste time. If he dies, it's not the end of the world, especially from a utility perspective. Nice sneak here with the Rotero drone. Is it in just behind a normal drone there to be able to blow up the extended shields? That's going to limit some more of the aggressive play from Wolves. Is what M80 need to do, because they're constantly being locked out of the site due to these more aggressively lean setups. Going to have some issue, of course, accessing the gun vault. Kino tries to catch the Azami on the transition, but his angle is just not perfect for it, unfortunately. Spoit will now move in here. He has a nade prime, so can get rid of that one and open up an actual execute option for his team. Deadshot finally smited as well here, as he'll go down after 6 kills in a row in the second half. So M80 slowing things down, waiting for Wolves to bust out and immediately making impact upon that, as Spoit now picks up a double kill over by 90. It's all on Nishinka. Although he said it was an impossible situation for M80 before, now it's an impossible situation for the Wolves, as M80 gives us a very clean round, a flawless one, in fact, to take AVG control.
That's what they need. As you mentioned, taking down Mowgli, it's something that you can't always bet on, but if you're probably going to kill someone on Wolves in the first minute of the round, dollars to donuts, it's probably Mowgli. That's probably who you're going to take down first. And so even though M80 have got that, I mean, that's what they got in round 8, now they have something else. They take down the player on maps, and sure, there's a smoke canister in the way. They can immediately move on in. Now they actually have caused a disruption within the site, and then Spoit sitting inside of 90, they're able to destroy that Kiva barrier, and now they have Vault as well. So everything they need to go in for an execute is almost in hand, and then it just helps that Spoit is actually in the server alongside now the rest of his team. Before that round, only Iconic had kills. Now everyone except Iconic got a kill in that round. M80, at the very, very last second, have finally shown up. They've finally shown they can throw Wolves off their game, but they just need to do it 2 more times.
Wolves, though, ultimately still have that capability to quickly end things here and now. But M80's got a few more tricks up their sleeve, most notably for both Iconic and Gomez. We've got the double threat flash combo here, as both the Ying and the Blitz are coming into play. Let's see what the plan is going to be now, as they're rushing quickly towards the building. We'll have to wait and see if they're going to, again, try to boom their way in outright with this execute utility that they have. They've tended to play a much slower game versus what we saw from the Wolves in the first half, but could always be surprised. It is M80 after all.
It is M80, but I think this is going to be used more for the roam clear instead of a direct assault onto the site with Living Room and Library. Sure, it's not played all that often, but pretty much everyone knows you got to take down the vertical a little bit. That's what Iconic will do, but he's slowed immediately. Falters due to the Banshee, got uncleared. The roam clear stopped in its tracks by just one measly piece of utility.
Iconic gets too close to the sun, unfortunately, tries to force the issue before the utility was cleared out. A single Malusi Banshee completely throws this strat into chaos now, as Mowgli thankfully will be traded back out. So M80 not losing complete control over this scenario. The Candela's starting to work their way out as well, so M80 certainly looking to take map control. That most recent kill happening a bit closer to Mudroom. So M80 is trying to take control of multiple facets of the map, but this area inside of AVG is the problem right now. They need to clear this out, or to an extent, respect the angles that will have been created by those players. Otherwise, more than likely, their actual assault into the site is not going to end up going too well. But at the same time, they can't waste the entirety of the round clearing this out, as has often been an issue in previous attacks inside of this half. Oh, snapshot there, and very well on follow-up there as well from Spoit to be able to catch Bibu just as he crouches back up from the bar to actually take a fight from the bar door itself. But obviously a new element had been added in there with the additional push coming forward for M80. So they're gonna take the kill advantage off of that one, bringing it down to a 4v3. It's still with over a minute to play as well.
All Wolves have now are these sight angles. The only utility they have to deny this plan are the impact grenades from Deadshot and the smoke canister from Shinka. But M80, even though only 3 drones left alive, they have an entire minute, or about that, to use these vertical angles to try to find players onto the site. No frag grenades, unfortunately, but those 2 Candelas as well, the flashes and the smokes. M80 have the utility to deny these angles and force Wolves to reposition or force them to take gunfights. But all that matters is actually getting down to the bottom floor. It'll be a living room or a library plant to try and go down. At least that's where Kino's currently positioned. And P4, he's looking to be the one to stop it.
Deadshot looking to potentially get himself involved in this one as well. Tries to go for the quick little impact damage up on top. Ends up blinding himself too, trying to move forward over towards the art vault. Diaz potentially waiting in the wings, catches one of these, rotates perfectly. P4 immediately denied as well. Deadshot, all that remains, as his 2 other teammates quickly finished back off here. Deadshot will also get the finisher off on a Gomez, that they don't get the intel on his rotate if he goes for it, but the plant's still down on the ground, meaning the pressure is on Deadshot himself to make the play here. M80 with the ball in their court now. Just need to hold the line and prevent that retake. This one will go their way. The top down already being established. Deadshot hears that. He knows that one of these players is rotated back up on top, but is it actionable for him? That's the question. And no, it's not, as Diaz goes for the peek from down below instead. M80 picking up this next one, as they are looking to complete this task, complete this comeback to take us to OT.
M80 read that round perfectly. They know, even though the roam clear was very, very hit or miss with Iconic losing, though he certainly has not faltered in terms of his energy by that early death and failed blitz clear on the top floor. M80 realized that if they let Bibu live inside of bar, their exact plant inside of library, it's not gonna happen. Bibu had the angle to deny that walk-in from Kino, so they have to take him down, and then they can move to the bottom floor, because where Wolves were playing, they were playing back over by living room. If somebody from M80 maybe got aggressive on bottom main stairs or got aggressive up the red hallway, Wolves would have had an opportunity for a gunfight, but M80 didn't need to push up that far, and they realized that. They played disciplined, they got in for the plant, and by fully committing to that roam clear on the top floor, they allowed that plant to happen in the first place. Wolves will take their tactical timeout, but all they need, as opposed to M80, is just one defense on a half they've looked so strong on a site that they won to start out this half.
Once again, Wolves themselves have not necessarily made any critical mistakes here. They've just fallen victim more than anything, at least in my opinion, to the strategy of M80 in these past 2 rounds here. Cooling off the aggression just a little bit here and not falling victim to the trick plays like we saw, able to take out the last remaining player behind the bar on the last round. Will potentially lead into a very different outcome to this round, and one that could still end the game. As Carter just mentioned, it's 7-5, full time for the Wolves, and an absolute crusher of the morale for M80 if it ends up going that way, having completed 2/3 of this comeback, only to potentially drop it on the final round. But M80 certainly has momentum playing into their favor, especially now that they forced the pause out from Wolves. Obviously, M80 will have gotten a bit of pause time from that too. So, well, again, things have not been necessarily perfect for them. They've gotten the input from their coach and could potentially fix those smaller issues that, while they haven't caused them a loss of the round, have made things a little bit dangerous on the previous 2 plays.
I really like this addition of the Echo from Wolves. With Valk banned, you can't get those black eye cameras off the site to allow the roamers to hold on to those positions for longer or take informed gunfights. But now you have those yokais, which of course have applications to deny the plant. That's been a facet of Echo's play since the moment he was released. But you can also use those yokais aggressively and proactively to give players like Mowgli maybe the option, if they want to stay inside of Statue a little longer. But he won't take that. He knows that he'll just need to back off, but with that door being barricaded, maybe he wants to play a little more aggressively on those red stairs. Again, he has the yokai to allow for that angle, but instead he'll pull back to the site. Wolves are not trying to change up the game plan too much. They're still relying on holding these power positions and taking fights with players on study, but the first fight, an important fight, does not go their way.
Mowgli once again dropped initially here. He has very often been that early victim for the Wolves. First strike has been made. P4 looking to potentially get some revenge from this if he can reckon a swing from 90 side, but it'll get killed before it even begins due to good drone presence coming out from M80. It's been the change-up from M80, playing things more slowly, much like we saw to some extent on at least one round for the Wolves, playing things together as well here. Make sure they trap any of the aggressive moves from the Wolves or target it outright.
Now M80 are looking to take down this player inside a vault. They've already got that opening. They're looking to open up that wall with the Selmas, deal with P4 or Bibu, both players close to that position. If they can burn those Kibas or even take down a yokai and then the operator that corresponds to it, this is the win condition or the go button that M80 want and are looking for. As long as these Kibas are alive, they can not only block off a whole maiden vault, but also allow Deadshot to play aggressively on anybody playing outside of Trophy and Statuary. The Flores will go in. It might just destroy that angle. Move closer to a minute. M80 don't have the opening they want just yet. There's still utility being expended by both teams all across the map, all around the site. It's dead heat in round 12.
Neither team able to make forward progress ever since that opening kill against Mowgli was claimed. Even things like these attempts to get hard breach potential going have not really worked out too well, but finally we are going to see at least one opening made now onto the inside of Gun Vault, and this slow windup usually has been playing into the favor of M80 because while it may not look like they're accomplishing a whole lot in the immediate moments, they're playing heavily into their drone presence here, and that is building up a winning attack. Spoit given a second birth of opportunity here as he's allowed to back away from things, but on the actual execute, it'll go to M80 as they just crush the defense outright here. We were so focused on the main stairs play, we didn't even notice the insight defense was falling to pieces. That'll complete the set, complete the comeback, and send us into overtime now to settle this game.
How fitting a game of inches goes to overtime, our first of the day. We began with some blowouts, but now we've moved to 6-6. M80 have recovered on their attack. They've answered 3 defenses with 3 attacks of their own. And what a beauty it was, those final 2 on Living and AVG. A recovery from an early loss and a clinical game all the way through. But Wolves get to start defense. If they can recover some of their own momentum, this could put them on an early match point, but the wind is currently in M80 sails. They've not had to play Trophy Statuary since that loss in round 8. But they have the knowledge of what they're doing wrong, and now it's time to apply it.
Do or die time for both of our teams here as we're just going to continue on, starting off the same sides we ended the second half with. M80 still with the pressure in their court, of course, on this attacking side, but Wolves as well. No longer with the capability to evolve their own game. Similarly to M80, losing the initial round, they took the tactical timeout for it. We'll see if the strategy comes into fold a little bit more strongly here as we work ourselves into overtime. And the sights are all unlocked for play once again as well. Away from that, though, A crazy start from either team. M80 taking things just as slowly as we've seen in most of their previous attacking rounds, so it's a bit of an additional droning, it looks like, for the majority of them. Gomez just quickly clearing things out in the basement. He'll be on a solo conquest to begin this round as the rest of the team more than likely goes on rappel upstairs to clear out master side.
Just how seriously M80 are taking this, though. Sometimes you'll see teams just pretend basement doesn't even exist and only really focus on the first and second floor of Villa. But Gomez is like, nope, I'm entering from that part of the map just to make sure that nobody can flank me up laundry stairs. There are some roamers to worry about, of course, one on the top floor and one on the middle floor in study and living room and library, respectively. Gomez, getting very close to that second one. He's not pushing in just yet, only going for some nades, but that roamer, Bibu, excuse me, he thinks he might have an opportunity for himself. It's still quiet in the first minute as M80 are very intently focusing on opening up this triple panel, clearing out brick, then maybe even making their way into Boar later. And the attackers down below, all they have to do is use their utility and make sure that none of those defenders hit a flank.
Keep in mind, it's just sight lines Kino needs to open up, not really trying to get a full outright breach onto this wall. Gomez will pop the Banshee, a very obvious signal now given over to Bibu, but he doesn't feel it's the right time to get aggressive. Now Gomez has bypassed it entirely. Still a possibility for a flank, but it could very well lead to the death of this Astro player. Gomez is allowed to work himself in. Spoit finishes things off and gets a second kill to follow that up against P4. Bibu still on the flank, but he's quickly running out of time and options to make this work. Not to mention there's still a rappel in play behind him as well. Gets the down against one, but Spoit has taken down his only other teammate. So Iconic just has to simply wait this one out, and never mind, it's Split to get the final kill as well. He goes huge here with, I believe, 4 out of 5 of the frags on the first round of overtime.
Wolves' patience finally bites them into the back. Bibu hears Spoit, or hears Gomez trigger the Banshee, and he doesn't move. He waits. He doesn't take his opportunity, and whether he knew it or not, it was perfect. Gomez had no idea he was there. He was so focused on the Astro flank, as he should be. That's what got M80 the round. But Bibu waits too long, and now M80 have their full plan underway, and there's nothing he can do to stop it. M80 have now won all of the sites, except for Kitchen, that Wolves won on their defenses, and now they get to go to the defensive side. Wolves are now down 4 rounds in a row, and if they want to win this 8-7, have got to win 2 on each side.
Let's see if they can get the job done. Wolves no longer with that same level of confidence that we've been seeing, especially from the defensive side either there. The hesitation from Bibu, a glaring example of that one, as he just did not want to potentially risk being taken down outright. Had he struck earlier, could have been looking at a very different outcome to that execute, or at least a much slower take of things from M80, which would have given opportunities to those insight players on the Wolves to potentially strike back. Doesn't end up transpiring though, and now they're up against the wall. Does that respond in their own game style now? Do they have to slow things down out of a caution, out of an abundancy of it, to not want to make those same mistakes that we had seen in some of their previous attacking rounds? Or they triple down once again, give us that bull rush style we've been getting out of their own attack inside of regulation? We're going to be finding out here over the next few seconds, but it does look much more tame, at least from the initial play. We are going to see, of course, P4 trying to see if he can get anything with these. But drones quite a bit to be stolen away from them on this round specifically. Most notably in the form of utility mitigation and a few other things as well. So if he can find a way to get himself into the actual site with these, quite a bit to be taken out. Unfortunately, those Mozzie passes will be getting in the way of it, but Iconic has brought out once again.
Mowgli getting a little too excited with those grenades. Only 4 on the attack and 2 already gone, 1 caught by a magnet, but 1 does destroy that shield, so Gomez can't get as aggressive inside a bedroom as he was before. M80 might just be prepping. Indeed they will. Frostmat gone, but the first initial fight goes M80's way. Maybe an advantage, but no, it's still 3-3 effectively with Spoit down. Now they've got a lead, but Shinka's on low HP. If M80 can fight back and take down the Ace, who's likely on their back line, it'll be a 2-2. Bibu only done a little bit of damage to that C4. M80's get out of jail free card not entirely working, and victory might just be a little bit of a ways away, as long as Wolves can recover.
M80 here, looking to slow this one down. The chaos that Wolves bring out on their initial entry. Thankfully, they'll have the capability to do so. Playing this one out downstairs. Shinka and Bibu both somewhat injured. Shinka obviously much more heavily, so he will have to play things out carefully, but still.
They have that sledge and those nades. And that's the definition of careful in this case. We've got Shinka and Deadshot down below, but Bibu can play up above, and with still a minute left, he can use those grenades to clear out positions held by Seikino, or just give some security inside of the site. But with Bibu now whittled down, Wolves might just have to get on the aggressive.
Play out from Kino, it's not gonna work. Deadshot immediately captures it when he tries to go for the swing around from Laundry. Iconic now left alone, but at full HP. So could still play this one down, but oh no, the barricade in the way. There's no easy rotate to get himself back into the site either. He's been completely blocked out. He'll have to try and find a way to get rid of this, but again, that's gonna telegraph him so much. He'll be able to certainly get into post-plant positions by the time he reckons himself back into the site. Goes for it now, but he just cannot find anyone. It's Ring around the Rosie, and he cannot find an opponent. Wolves will win it out once again, and they give themselves that final 15th round to still try and win out this game.
And it all comes down to a best of one, just one round. Whoever wins, wins the series. They'll move to our upper part of the Swiss bracket. Of course, these teams, whether they win or lose, still have plenty of games ahead of them, plenty of maps to play. This has been a barn burner between M80 and Wolves, and both proving that they are top contenders within Phase 2 of the Copenhagen Major. M80 start on the attack. Wolves will move to the defense as well. M80's defense seeming solid in that round, but Wolves able to not really even play the patient game, but just set up for the first minute, blitz in through that bore window, and the trades just so happen to work their way. Something that hasn't happened consistently throughout the course of this match, especially when M80 are on fire. But now they brought a different strategy. They brought a different operator, one that M80 might not expect, or they might find difficulty in clearing. P4's brought the clash, but on the opposite side, unless he changes it, Iconic will bring back the Ying.
Let's see if the Ying provides enough of an effect once again for M80 to work their way into this site for a third successful attack inside of this game. Wolves are currently 1-3 on defending this site as they played out 3 times in regulation. They're now going to do so here for the 4th time to try and win out the game. Let's see if they can get the job done, or if M80 will just repeat the success of the previous 2 attacks. Now, like Carter mentioned, with the Ying in play, the EE1Ds coming back for Gomez as well to restrict any aggressive swings that Wolves have been big fans of to try and play out a less predictable defensive half here. Drone is going to be spotting the rotation, of course, from Mowgli, but they've had pretty good lock onto Mowgli for the early round for quite a few of these attacks already, so that's not too surprising to see that at the start of the round.
Wolves are looking to keep Mowgli alive as long as possible, not just because of how skilled a player he is, but with, as you mentioned, it just being 50-50, whether he's the opening pick or the opening death. That's gonna really hurt you here if he falls onto the opening death side of that equation. M80 still starting with some early study pressure alongside a clear of the northern part of the map, moving in through Trophy and Statuary. This is not gonna be new for Wolves, but the clash will be new for M80. How will they reconcile with this? Their plan doesn't need to shift just yet. They can still play things by the book, but once they get to that clash and P4 can move up 90, move up, contest things on maps, or just give M80 a bit of a fright, they'll have to find some way, whether it be the Candelas or the grenades, to deal with it. Beyond that, it's still just the game plan, still the strat book for both these teams.
Neither team wanting to make a mistake here, so it's very tame for the opening minute or two. As you can see, Iconic just setting himself up on the 90 angle. We're going to see the Candela hit him pretty heavily. Toxic Favorite, additional damage coming in behind that as well, and it will end up damaging P4 a bit due to the blind that had gone out against him. Direct contention starting to work its way in from the statuary side, most notably from Gomez. They're on the 90 angle itself, and P4 will not really have much of a choice but to fall back and respect that. Mowgli still playing a very active position due to still having this deployable shield by Study and Death's Door, of course. Quite a few things for M80 to take out, and once again, they are beginning to run low on time to actually rattle off the rest of that checklist. But here we go, at least one more step being accomplished from it as they do take down that deployable shield. So that'll give them some options to execute in for either Study or that Death's Door area.
Bibu going for a huge flank up red stairs. He has the angle. He's got 2 kills. Gomez and Kino full. Diaz not long for the world either. Iconic and Spoit make that just the European import in a 1v5 and a clash in his way. Wolves now, it's all a formality. They just need to go through the motions and electrocute Spoit to death. The Wolves take down the NAL champions in a barn burner to open up the Swiss.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for our game. We'll be right back to break it down in just a second.
I got problems on problems on problems on problems on problems on problems I solve them. I run through the money, the pressure be calling. Left on my blessings, I feel like I'm falling. The birdie is back, tell me I'm garbage. I'm going through something, that's why I ain't calling. Phone and progression, it's all that I wanted. The phone and affection, I summon and dub it. Cause I got problems on problems on problems on problems on problems on problems I solve them. I run through the money, the pressure be calling. Left on my blessings, I feel like I'm falling. The birdie is back, tell me I'm garbage. I'm going through something, that's why I ain't calling. Phone and progression, it's all that I wanted. The phone and affection, I summon and dub it. Why you be all on my line about nothing? Why won't you go get you $1 or something? Don't hang with it who line for nothing. I see that we different, you riding, I double. I don't do discussions on bragging about hundreds. Don't go to your places, I know that they sunken. Don't call me your brother, I barely could trust it. I talked to a shorty, she bagging the bucket. And I'ma need all of my dollars on corporate, so hand me the money, I divvy the pie. I'ma give all of my people a portion to build them a fortune. I'm flipping the ride. I can't be mixy when iffy the vibe. And 40 on 50 is really the time. Why are you all on my phone like you want me? Like you wasn't pushing the kid to the side. I run through the money, the pressure be calling. Left on my blessings, I feel like I'm falling. The birdie is back, tell me I'm garbage. I'm going through something, that's why I ain't calling.
Well, Bibu, or should I say Bibu. How did you feel that game went? Obviously, yourself and Iconic had a little bit of a back and forth a little bit before the game.
Yeah, I mean, feeling pretty good with the win. Bit scared with their comeback. But yeah, feel really good to be on top against a great team of M80, sorry. And yeah, Iconic is a good friend of mine, and so yeah, it's like a bit of banter between us, but nothing bad, just fun things, and yeah, feeling great to beat him because last time he beat me, so take a revenge.
So what kind of preparation went into regaining that kind of revenge that you've been looking for?
We just prepared our game like every games, with no differences between teams. We knew they were a good team. They won the NAL, so they are a strong team, but we just prepare our game with our staff, LB and Laurie, analyze how they play, what game style we can adapt to counter them. I think at the beginning it worked well. I think they adapted during the mid-game, and it worked well for them. So we needed to take a bit of time out, reconsider what is better for the game, and to have the win conditions. I think we worked well, and we took the win at the end. So.
Now, focusing a little bit more about your role as an individual, how do you think that's kind of adapted with the addition and joining of younger talents?
I feel like I need to be more pillar for them sometimes, try to bring my experience where I can, trying to always be the example for them. And after that, like trying to put them in the best conditions to just enable all their talents, because they have so much talents. And so yeah, that's the main role I'm doing in the team. And after that, so just playing the game too. I need to click head sometimes, so I do that.
Now, obviously, you've had the opportunity of playing in Phase 1 already. Do you feel like that's kind of benefited yourself and your team?
I think, yeah. I think every team who's played in Phase 1 have a bit of advantage on the side, because like we are warm. We sometimes got some loss. For us, we lost against W7M, and it spots some issues that we can fix for next games. They don't have that. They have practice, but practice is not the same that real games. And but at the same time, they also have an advantage because they rest. They could analyze a lot of teams. So it's like 50-50. But I think, yeah, for us, like a team who's working on, who's playing a lot of on momentum, energy, I think it's helping us a lot.
Amazing. Well, thank you for joining me. I'm going to let you go ahead and celebrate with your team.
Thanks. See you.
Well, Fresh. That had us on the edge of our seats just a little bit, didn't it?
I'm just going to say, that was the best game of the day so far, probably the best game of the tournament so far. I think genuinely that game was full of moments. I think that's the best way to describe it. That was two high-quality teams going head-to-head. In reality, both teams probably deserve to win. Yeah. If this was league play, both teams get something out of it. And it just came down to moments of big kills, big flanks, big plays.
Yeah, exactly. It could have gone either way, and that was a shocker. To be fair, it was a very tense round, I will say. It could have gone either way, as I mentioned. Wolves started out great on their own defense. defenses. It seemed like M80 were unable to win a singular round. They eventually came back. For example, a player we can talk about was Split had a great start of the game, then he had a little bit of a calmer moment, and then afterwards he got back up. But unfortunately, it wasn't enough for his team to get the victory out here today.
I think there was a big round, particularly from Wolves, where they recovered a disadvantaged situation to get a 2v2 post plant down in that round 6, as you're going to see in the replays here. I think that was the big turning point. Wolves felt comfortable in the game. Obviously, they got the lead, then the nearly comeback happened. Like I say, it was full of big moments, big game day plays, you know. As much as Wolves won, and obviously congratulations to them, they were excellent. So was Iconic, so was Spoit, so was M80 as well.
And a player I want to highlight on the side of Wolves is Deadshot, because he's the recent addition to the team. He's been putting up numbers today.
Yeah.
Like crazy, he's really putting out that shift for his team. And whilst maybe during EUL there were some shakes, there was some tension because he's a younger player, he's a bit less experienced than the rest of his roster, he really, really showed himself today.
Now, on the side of M80, they're going to look to revisit the drawing board. What are the discussions that need to be had?
I think when they were on the defense, Wolves were executing 3-2-1s. They were letting Wolves get set up and actually execute them. Maybe caught off guard a little bit. They wised up to that, but it was happening way too late. So I think they just need to be a little bit smarter inside of the server earlier on. And like I say, they went up probably against a formidable opponent, again, like in terms of the opponents they could have gone up against, and they nearly beat them. So it's not much they need to change.
Okay. All right. I sensed some frustration when we were watching the game as well, when you were watching M80 play. What was it in particular that frustrated you just a little bit?
I mean, it's unfortunate if you lose 3 rounds in a row and you get into that kind of momentum, and then when they do come back and win those rounds in attack to go into overtime, they had that momentum, you could clearly see it, and then from their own defense, indeed, like you mentioned, they let Wolves, for example, set up, they let them kind of take control over the round, and that's where it kind of slipped away from them.
Well, coming up very shortly, we have G2, the reigning champs, taking on SSG. I can't wait to dive into this one, so we'll be back soon.